So you good now?
I'm ready.
Okay, let me start a new recording.
I didn't start.
He's ready. Immediately hacks. Good start.
Came out of nowhere.
I'm ready.
Welcome back to Screenplay Rewind. Is this our cold open? I think this is our cold open.
Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new episode of Screenplay Rewind. I'm Geoff.
I'm Ron.
And we are kicking off a special little series we have dubbed completely originally Franchise Summer.
What? Franchise Summer? How original.
How original. I mean, it is matter of fact at the very least. But what movie shall we be covering this week, Ron?
Pacific Rim.
You goddamn right. I'm so stoked to talk about this movie.
Bum, 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 ba-da-da-da-dum.
Yeah, I've had that theme song. Me and Rob are thinking about, just going to start like a massive bar fight at an Irish pub in downtown Tulsa or something, just because. It's so good. It's so catchy. Literally my only complaint, and we'll get to it on the next episode because we get to the sequel. Why does the sequel not use the theme song more? It's such a good theme song.
I think they were trying to do the Avengers thing because I think they do time it with like awesome stuff near the end.
It just take too long to do it though. Like time it with awesome shit in the beginning too. Just time. I mean, you don't have to use it as much as the first because the first one uses the shit out of it because Del Toro is just
it's
like,
the
fuck
score.
yes,
Yeah.
This theme song is amazing. Let's use it. So
well, Tom Morello, right? Isn't he the guitar part?
I have no idea, but I totally buy it because it does sound like
I own the soundtrack. I think it's like so and so and Tom Morello or something.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
But yeah, like even Avengers, like if you think of Endgame, you might not get the full theme, but like, when Chris Evans is giving his monologue before they time travel, you hear part like the start of it. Like you get teased in it. I think they'd use it like not at all in the second one until near the end.
If I remember right, it's using a cool moment. But give me more. It's fucking great. So this is Pacific Rim. We were planning on covering, as we just said, the Pacific Rim Uprising, the sequel, here in a couple weeks for the next episode. Potentially the anime. That's kind of to be determined. Just kind of see what we think of it. But yeah, Pacific Rim came out in 2013, 8 years ago, which is not okay. Feels like yesterday. We went to go see it at the theater. Remember going to the theater? Those were good times.
Oh, yeah.
I miss them so.
Remember when we still had them?
Right. R.I.P. the ArcLight, man.
Oh,
Bummer.
man. I know. Have you ever been, real quick tangent, 2.5 minutes in.
Are you suggesting a quick aside, Ron? That has never happened in the history.
Welcome to our spin-off podcast, Quick Aside. Have you ever been to an ArcLight?
I don't think I have, actually.
I didn't know Pacific Theaters. They're apparently the owners of the ArcLight chain. But I've never been to California. I know they're Southern California mostly. And if I ever went to California, that was on my list. I've always wanted to go to an ArcLight.
They look really cool. They're
supposed to be like the cream of the crop of the theater experience.
When it was open, wasn't the ArcLight where they would have a lot of the press screenings with like the cast and crew and shit there with the
2008
the movie?
Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. surprised the Iron Man audience. Just walked in.
Could you I would fucking die in my seat, dude, if that happened. Holy shit. Could you imagine? Jesus.
Jizz in your pants and then die.
Yes.
What a way to
AC/DC
go.
plays in the background. That's the best way to go out, bro.
Because they have the ushers that come in and introduce the show like the way the Warren used to here.
There's no cleaning up after what happens to Geoff in that situation.
It's like
you just burn the seat and walk away.
South Park Randy Man. It was a ghost. It was a spooky ghost. It was ectoplasm. But yeah, and instead of the usher coming in, it was fucking Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau. Could you imagine?
Mm.
But anyways, I was sad to hear that they're going to shut down, and they were always on my list, and I'm never going to get to go now. Someone's going to buy them, and it's going to be different though. It's not going to be 100% the same, but
yeah, it'll probably come back because so I forget the name of the other chain, but fucking Tarantino apparently saved some other theater chain that was about to be going out, and he just kind of like resuscitated it just because he's Quentin Tarantino and he's the fucking, movie lover to end all movie lovers. And he's just like, yeah. So I think eventually they'll probably come back to some extent, like you said, but it wouldn't be the same. But I don't think it's the end for them. They're too famous. I think it'll come back eventually. But with Pacific Rim from 2013, directed by the beloved Mr. Guillermo del Toro, one of my favorites. Story by Travis Beacham, screenplay by Beacham with assistance by Mr. del Toro himself. And there are Del Toro-isms all over this fucking movie, and I'm all about it. And just the first note that I had for the movie is this is the first 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray that I have watched on my PS5, because that was like the only reason I bought the goddamn disc version of the PS5 was to be able to get 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays. Oh my god, Ron, it's so pretty.
It's very pretty.
I was like a fucking fat kid in a candy store watching my robots punch the monsters, dude. It was the best.
Now you had it a little bit better than me. When you turn in the digital codes for iTunes, sometimes even if it's just a regular Blu-ray, they will just give you the 4K HDR version, even though you didn't buy the 4K Blu-ray. Just 'cause I guess it's easier for them to keep tabs on the codes to just give you the better one. And that's what I'm watching on, but I'm streaming it still. So
there's only so much fidelity they can have to it.
Yeah. So yeah, you got a little bit better than me, but yeah, it's very pretty. This movie still looks good. It's an 8-year-old movie.
See, yeah, that was going to be my next point, is when you have a movie like this that has so much CGI usage, right? Once you go a few years and you have like a different type of like generation update with the technology, as far as, like watching a DVD that's been, then transferred to Blu-ray, you start to pick up on shit that becomes dated. This movie looks fan-fucking-tastic. I was more impressed with the fucking CGI usage in Pacific Rim, the 8-year-old fucking movie that wasn't meant to be in 4K, than I was Godzilla vs. Kong CGI that just came out like 2 fucking weeks ago.
Another thing, and I remember this from all the featurettes before Pacific Rim hit theaters and all the stuff leading up to it and all the promotions. Somewhere on a podcast or something, Del Toro was talking about how the animators hated him because he abhors green screen. So they had to animate every single frame of the film.
Yep.
Each frame had to be animated because
it shows that like that end product though is so fucking smooth and everything is just immaculately designed.
He would not let them green screen. He used green screen as little as he could because he absolutely hates it. And there are entire scenes, not short scenes either, like 10 or more minutes of just straight CGI in this movie, and it looks good.
Looks great. I was a little concerned as I booted up, and I was like, oh man, I'm excited to watch this in 4K, but I hope it's not one of those things where it's like, you get disappointed because it starts to like, make the flaws a little bit more glaring the higher fidelity you get with the quality you're watching it in. But oh man, it's fucking gorgeous. And part of it too is just like, and it shows in all of Del Toro's movies, but his movies always have gorgeous color palettes to them. The cinematography is sleek as fuck.
That was the very next thing I was going to talk about. So, I'm a madman, Geoff. I recently watched Godzilla 2014.
That's a mistake.
Kong Skull Island.
That's a good decision.
King of the Monsters. And then Godzilla vs. Kong.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I was raging at my father, because he was the person I was on the phone with when I was done with these movies, I was telling him about how, like, say, in Godzilla 2014, much of the 5 seconds worth of fight you have in the movie is just a black screen while some monster sound effects play. And I was like, if you're trying to cover up, well, like King of the Monsters, you see the monsters, but a lot of the times they're shrouded in rain or fog or ice and snow. And they're kind of in the background while the humans are in the foreground, Transformers style. And I'm like, if you're trying to hide something about the CG, there are ways to do that. And Pacific Rim uses all of those techniques. Pacific Rim is the one that I pointed at because where they have to target where the money is. They have to target, in a movie like this, they have to target what scenes get most of the budget. And you can tell in this movie that it is when they fight, God damn it, Leatherback, and I forgot the other one's name.
Is this the Hong Kong?
The Hong Kong fight with the double event.
One of the best action sequences of all time, in my opinion, is the Gypsy Danger Hong Kong sequence. It's so fucking metal, dude.
And that's where the money basically is in this movie, right? The beginning of the movie, they did the Spielberg technique where you're not entirely happy with the way it looks. Put it at night, put it in the rain, and half of the robots are obscured in the ocean, right?
Yeah.
But it still looks good. It still works. Then you're redirecting the resources you have for that scene for what is visible. Like Godzilla 2014 and King of the Monsters, I got no monsters.
The problem with Godzilla 2014 specifically, I think, is King of the Monsters, is that what you said the name of the second one is? Mm-hmm. I think King of the Monsters actually does a better job of splashing out and spreading out more of the sequences with the monsters, because there's more monsters in King of the Monsters. Godzilla 2014, the main problem with that movie, I know this isn't a review of that, so we're not going to spend too much time on this, but the problem with that movie is it's an art film that just happens to star Godzilla, and he's just barely in the fucking movie. And there's no reason why, because if it had had, really compelling characters, that'd be one thing. If they're trying to Cloverfield it, maybe get you a little bit more invested with the characters.
He's a cardboard cutout of a person. Like, he's got no personality in that movie.
And Godzilla 2014 has the single most generic characters ever. Yeah. And the one person who could have elevated a generic character was Bryan Cranston, who they fucking kill in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
It is the most mind-bogglingly, just mishandled major motion picture I think I've fucking seen in a long time, and I don't understand why anyone likes it. Outside now, fucking laser breath down the throat is so unbelievably metal it almost saves the entire movie, but not even that could save that movie. I still fucking hate that movie, and I don't get why it has the kind of following that it does.
A higher review on Rotten Tomatoes than Spaceballs?
Yeah, fuck off with that shit.
I had to bring it up. What? Oh, man. If only kaiju movies were back in vogue when Mel Brooks was still making movies. That's the one genre we never got from him.
Yeah. I would be all over that.
The reason I bring it up was, the robots and the kaiju are front and center in this movie. And this movie does have compelling characters. I mean, you see the human stuff. It's not egregious, and the human stuff is interesting, and it has colorful characters.
My second note to your point is my second note was literally Pacific Rim understands the human character kaiju balance better. It also has better pacing as it does it.
Yes,
specifically in Godzilla vs. Kong, every time they flashed over to 11, I wanted to fucking hang myself.
Yes,
I literally think the only reason she's in that movie and Kyle Chandler, who plays her dad, are even in Godzilla vs. Kong at all are because of contracts. I think they were contractually obligated to be in both King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong, so that's why they're in the movie as much as they are, and why Kyle Chandler is even in there at all. Because he cut out almost all the other fucking human characters in that movie.
Yes. And then the other thing I was going to say is everything in the Monsterverse is black on gray on black with some hints and touches of gray. Except for Godzilla's atomic breath.
I think Skull Island actually has a little bit more of a color palette.
Skull Island plays with color the way Pacific Rim does.
Yes.
But in Pacific Rim, there's a lot of black. There's a lot of gray, but then you have the red-orange glow of Gypsy Danger's chest. You have the blue inside the Kaiju's mouth and the Kaiju blood.
Yeah, it's like neon almost.
It's neon, vibrant, in your face. And there are flashes like when Gypsy Danger fires the plasma cannon, there's that blue flash that highlights the like yellow and orange stripes down the Kaiju's body that you couldn't see until that flash. And
it's so good.
The way that they play with color like that, the way that they play with lighting in general. That scene when Gypsy Danger joins the Hong Kong fight and the Kaiju turns around and there's just the silhouette that's backlit of Gypsy Danger and then the lights move out of the way to show Gypsy. Oh,
so good. I
good.
have to give credit. Cinematography was done by Guillermo Navarro. And the movie was I think the movie is edited very well too. John Gilroy and Peter Munson.
Are they Del Toro favorites? Because usually directors like Del Toro use the same editors, use the same cinematographers.
Yeah, it would not surprise me at all, especially for someone who is such a specifically like all of Del Toro's movies have a specific flair that is his and his alone. So it would not surprise me at all.
Flourish.
But I wanted to kind of while we're talking about like we were mentioning the characters, and I think a big reason why the characters work better for me in Pacific Rim than stuff like Godzilla 2014 and the Transformers movies especially is they actually take the time to write out the characters and have arcs for the characters instead of just hiring famous people for the sake of hiring famous people. Like every actor in here is specifically chosen for their role and they match it very well. I think
you mean specifically chosen.
And with the cast
right over that.
just skating right on along. The cast in this movie is fucking amazing, dude. And I want to start off with like my favorite person probably in the cast. If you just want how like fucking perfectly cast they were, is Idris Elba. Idris Elba, when he fucking raises his voice, even the person like I'm like, oh shit, you know, it's like shit just gets real.
So,
when he has like a presence to him in this movie.
Two things. First, I do not want to fuck with a man whose name is Stacker Pentecost. Is that one of the most badass names you've ever heard?
I have it listed in my notes as Stacker Pentecost is the most anime name ever, and I'm all about it.
I do not want to fuck with that guy no matter what he looks like or who he is, if his name is Stacker Pentecost. The other thing about Stacker Pentecost is there is a line that Idris Elba is walking in this movie. Stacker Pentecost is almost... He's somewhere between one note and no personality and very vibrant personality at the same time. He's very career military man, the stereotypical, but every once in a while his emotions do get him. The anger will come through, or you know, the disappointment or the realization of what has to happen comes through, and then he becomes very human, and then he just snaps back. When the elevator doors open, he snaps back into being the military man. And it's real interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a great performance. And I think he's perfectly chosen for this movie is because you don't really see him do much, but you need to buy into his character and their status. It reminds me a lot of like Denzel is very good about it. Denzel doesn't really have to do much in a movie to have gravitas just because of how much screen presence he has. And Idris Elba is very similar in that. He doesn't really do much other than kind of walk around and talk to people in this movie, but he has such a fucking gravitas and like weight to his character. You're just like, fuck, dude. Like, you know, he's a badass. He doesn't have to do anything.
He's got the right personality to seem like he is the guy in charge. He very much has that air about him that he is the man in charge. You are not. And not in an asshole way, but this guy is scraping together anything and everything he can to save the world, even though the world doesn't want him to. And he is holding the line between the apocalypse and the human race continuing. And like he has that one line, I didn't write it down, but he's going to be the last man standing is basically his character's whole thing.
Yeah, I love his character a lot. I also really like Rinko Kikuchi, who plays Mako.
Yes.
She's great. She brings a lot of the kind of like heart to the film, I think, especially because like how much time they devote. She probably gets the most time devoted to her backstory out of anyone.
Yes.
Throughout the film. Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy plays Raleigh Beckett,
Is that
the protagonist.
I only know him from this movie. I've never seen him in anything else.
He was in the Guy Ritchie King Arthur that I wanted to see but never got around to.
I never got around to it either.
He's popped up in everything. I've never really thought he was kind of like given a fair shot. And he's been in several films over the years.
He could not have been cast more perfectly in this movie for Raleigh Beckett.
Yeah, I think he's really good in this movie because he has to convey a lot of, he's the protagonist. So typically protagonists in these types of movies, get very little development because they're really just like a stand-in to kind of move the movie along. And I think he actually, does a really good job of conveying a lot of the, he kind of elevates the performance a little bit more than people give him credit for.
He's really got a feel of like he's been through some shit, right?
Yeah.
Because when we first see him, in 2020, I think was the date when Knifehead attacks and he wakes up his brother Yancey and he's just kind of bouncing all over the place like, yeah, another notch on the belt. And Yancey's just like, hey, kid, don't get cocky. And then they go out and he's just like, yeah, let's kick some ass. And then he's connected to his brother as his brother dies. So he knows and feels everything that his brother was feeling. And then when we fast forward 5 years later, he's a totally different person. Like that whole experience has completely changed his outlook. And you get that he looks emotionally tired through the whole movie, like his eyes and stuff. And the performance that he gives really conveys that, yeah, he seems, dude, he's traveling around with a fucking phone book thick stack of photos of like him and his brother and stuff. I mean, the guy's got some guilt, and that comes across, even though they don't out and out say it. It comes across.
He had great chemistry while filming with the Mako actors too. I really like their scenes. Like when she basically tells him,
yeah, they're drift compatible in real life.
when she tells him just straight up, I don't think you're the right man for this job. You have too much baggage with you, and just like the look on his face as he's, you can tell he's like hurt by it, but he can't entirely disagree because she's not entirely wrong. He does have a lot of baggage. It's just they're fucking out of options because, like Idris Elba talks about during the movie, Raleigh is literally the only fucking Mark III Jaeger pilot left alive.
I'm guessing I wasn't your first choice. You were my first choice, Mr. Beckett, because no other Mark III pilots are alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I want to switch to, after we get through the rest of the cast real quick, I want to specifically talk more about the drift stuff, because I think the drift stuff is very, very
it's
great plot device, just as a concept.
It's not a
in
gimmick.
General.
It's not sit inside the Monster Zero's head and plug yourself in. It's a fucking plot device in this movie.
Yeah, and not a negative connotation. It's a well executed, fucking great concept. But we have to talk about how much I fucking love Charlie Day and Bern Gorman as Newt and Gottlieb, dude.
Is it? If it weren't for the sequel, I would say, is that you and me in this film? Is that where you and I come in?
Gotta be. Gotta be.
Because I love the game we used to play of, okay, that's me. The guy that just died horribly in the dumbest way possible, that's me. Like, I missed that. And I was watching this thinking, like, we're not cool enough to be like Yancey and Raleigh. Like, it's gotta be fucking Newt and Gottlieb.
Yeah, they're fucking great. And I love how Charlie Day always calls Bern Gorman by his first name, Herman, or whatever. Yes. Because he knows he hates it. And they have such like a... I love
they have like an anti-chemistry or something.
Yeah. And also just like, now obviously Charlie Day was just like, this role could not have been written more for Charlie Day to excel at it. But
right.
Like, dude, Bern Gorman has so much range that he doesn't get credit for.
You don't even
remember fucking just how disgustingly evil that dude was in like stuff like Game of Thrones. He's a very Man in the High Castle. He has a very dark character in that too.
I never saw it.
everything I ever see Burn Gorman in, I fucking love him in.
He runs the emotional gambit in Torchwood.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about that.
You get to see a little bit of all of it in Torchwood.
Yeah, and he's just so dorky and lovable in this, and you can just see when you watch him in other stuff and just how just straight scum of the earth evil that man can reach in his acting range. Like, he needs more roles. Please.
In Game of Thrones, it was the fucking Lord Commander's skull he was drinking out of, right?
Yes. Exactly. Shit like that, where the man is just so fucking criminally underrated and underutilized in Hollywood. Please give Burn Gorman more fucking roles.
I wonder if he's bigger in the UK than he is here. I wonder if he shows up in more UK films.
Like on the BBC and shit like that.
Yeah,
it's very
than
possible.
we think he does.
Yeah. I like, see, that's the thing too, is like all these characters we're talking about have fucking character arcs.
Yes.
All of them do. Even the fucking asshole son of Herc ends up having a character arc, and you actually kind of end up, rooting for him to an extent towards the end.
Come on, Gypsy, kick his ass!
Not a single fucking character in Godzilla 2014, in any of the Transformers films, in Godzilla vs. Kong, none of them, not even the main protagonists, have any fucking form of a character arc.
Nope. They are there because monster movies traditionally have humans in them. That is it.
And I think it's an interesting parallel in I think part of the reason why Kong Skull Island works is Kong Skull Island understands how to frame the movie more like a thrill ride. Yes. Like Kong Skull Island reminds me of the way the first Jurassic Park film works.
I can see that.
Where there's not a whole lot of character development going on, but the characters are likable, and it's meant to be framed more like a thrill ride you're on instead of a prototypical movie. The reason why Godzilla 2014 as a comparison does not work is it's an art house film that is overly pretentious and thinks it's accomplishing more than it actually is, and it comes across just very dull to me.
So, aside from Kong Skull Island, the MonsterVerse movies are very up their own ass. And
they really are.
They really, really are. Whereas Kong Skull Island and both Pacific Rim movies, they know what you're after. They know why you're there, and they know that there are certain things that they have to do. Like, if there's gonna be people, there has to be a compelling reason for those people to be there and to be doing the thing they're doing, and it has to make sense. And Kong Skull Island knows that you're there to see a giant monkey fuck shit up, and you get to see a giant monkey fuck shit up, but then Kong has character development. Dude, that scene when he sits in the middle of the water and gets attacked by the giant fucking kraken and then kills it and eats it, and he just looks like this harmless little baby thing in the middle of a fucking valley eating a giant kraken. And the way that he acts with Brie Larson and stuff, like, even the monster has character development in Kong Skull Island.
Fucking John C. Reilly has more character development in Kong Skull Island than any movie or than any character in any of the fucking Godzilla movies.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a reason why Kong Skull Island and Pacific Rim are my two favorite kaiju movies, even as someone who's never really been into King Kong or Godzilla really specifically. It's just these movies kind of get what I'm looking for in that they actually take the time to like give a shit. It's not, and they're not overly pretentious, just like you were saying. Like, they understand perfectly what they are. And there was nobody more perfect to direct this type of movie than Guillermo del Toro, because his movies always have this kind of fun. Guy. Yeah, his movies always have this fun vibe to them, and they're always so well paced, and they're so great.
Like, I didn't like Shape of Water, but it's a well put together film. And it's really well done, and the effects are really good, and you get presumably what you want out of it. I didn't, because it's just not my thing. It's not for me.
I thought it was okay. I just didn't get the hype around it.
I didn't get the hype around it either, but that doesn't make it a bad film. And there are numerous videos online you can watch of his fucking monster collection. He is the monster guy. He's got all kinds of monster shit in his house. And
it just makes me
he was born for this movie, dude. Like,
it just makes me so sad that the Del Toro Lovecraftian movie never got around to getting made, because I need that in my life, dude.
I can't even imagine.
Del Toro fucking created like Shoguts and stuff like that. Oh man.
Yeah, I
need it in my life.
I can't imagine.
No, I just want to also point out, Ron Perlman in his career has played a Hellspawn demon with chiseled off horns and a rock arm, and the most ridiculous character he's played is Hannibal Chow in Pacific Rim, and I fucking am all about it.
Who has an arc and a purpose?
Oh, dude, where's my goddamn shoe?
One look is all I needed. Yeah.
Goddamn, I love this movie so much. I love it so much.
You funning me, boy?
There, and I love how after all this shit that fucking Charlie Day goes through, when he actually manages to come back and be alive, Ron Perlman's like, okay, yeah, I can work with you now. He has like legitimate respect for Charlie Day just for managing to survive that nonsense, you know?
I love that not only did he work with him, not only was he just like, all right, but it's after the, all right, you one-eyed bitch, you promised me a kaiju brain.
Like, yeah, as he's just shaking uncontrollably.
So one of the things that I fucking love is when characters get exactly what they wanted, even or especially when it's not the way they wanted it. Charlie Day's character specifically says that he hopes to see a kaiju up close and personal someday. Mm-hmm. And then we have him in the monster shelter as the ceiling caves in and the weird fucking tongue thing comes in, and that scene where he's trying to put his glasses on and he's shaking too violently to do it.
Dude, the neon lighting of the tongue as it's surrounding Charlie Day is some of the best fucking lighting I've ever seen in a movie. It's so gorgeous and it's so creepy. That's why like he really needed to make a Lovecraftian movie. I hope that still happens one day, please.
And I did not intend for this episode to be the comparison podcast, but Godzilla 2014 tried to do that with Godzilla's atomic breath and the way it charges up his spine and comes out and the way it illuminates everything. The screen was not pitch black when this came in, and you still got that same effect.
Yeah,
it was
everything.
It was blacks and grays and reds and oranges, and then this bright neon blue comes in. This night phosphorescent blue comes in.
They also just have everything always perfectly framed. You're never lost in a shot, even during the action sequences, as like water's flowing all over the place.
No shaky
as they're
camera.
Fighting. They're always, they're always front and center, and you see just enough, to understand what's happening. And especially as someone who hates most of the Transformers movies and how I can't understand what's happening when the blur of fucking gray CGI is fighting the other blur of fucking gray CGI, and it's always shittily fucking framed.
Hey, sometimes there is some yellow CGI in there too, I'll have you know.
The only fucking character I can ever tell apart from any goddamn Transformer is Bumblebee, because he's fucking bright ass yellow. Fuck those movies.
He's like
dude.
the least disguised robot.
Right. Robots in disguise asterisk. Okay, we have to talk about first of all, before I forget, I never noticed that the fucking part of town that Charlie Day goes to find Hannibal Chow is called the Bone Slums, which take a drink has to have been a Dark Souls area at some point, right? The fucking Bone Slums. Come on.
Bone Slums is ready.
It's red. I got you for 3 minutes. So let's talk about, before we forget, I have to go into more detail since we had alluded to it and I want to talk about it more. The fucking idea of the drift is so cool.
Oh, yes.
The drift is fucking genius, dude. Because here's the thing. Last week when we were talking about The Fifth Element, right? One complaint I had about it is just how poorly executed its exposition is for the first 30 minutes or 35 minutes or so of the film, right? It's just spoon-fed, point A to point Z. Here is exposition, sit down and be bored. The idea of using the drift as an excuse to like delve into like Stacker, Pentecost, and Mako's backstory is fucking genius, and it's so cool because they get to also bring in the protagonist, and he gets to organically learn about like her backstory, and it's just like a chef's kiss of a fucking plot device, man. It's so good.
Yeah, it not only is it an excuse for you to literally walk through their backstory, But like you said, the main character is not getting bits and pieces from other people. He's not hearing rumors. He's seeing it firsthand as if he's there. Like, he was fucking there for it. He's in her memories. And he presumably is feeling everything that she's feeling in those moments as well. Because he's plugged into her, right? That's how he's seeing everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So
the editing is always top notch too. I love every time they have a character, whether it be like when Charlie Day and Bern Gorman do it, or they always have the little like quick snippets where you see them as like children and you flash forward and backwards like all throughout their lives. It's just such a cool concept.
I was gonna say, I love that you get to see Newt and Gottlieb's upbringing as well, through the drift. And then it just all of a sudden cuts to all the kaiju shit because, oh yeah, we're also drifting with a kaiju. So we get to see the kaiju's perspective because we're plugged into it.
And then they also use the drift compatibility to like, to round out the character arc and, a friendship with Gottlieb and Charlie Day, they end up needing to be able to figure out, and save the day at the end and tell them that the plan's not going to work, by drifting together with the baby kaiju brain.
By the way, everything you need to know about their relationship up to that point is summed up in the line of, you would do that for me. Well, you would do that with me. Like, he stops and corrects himself.
Yeah.
That's everything you need to know about their relationship before they drift together.
You. Shut up. You. Keep talking. I like to when it's such a good fucking.
Be a rock star.
I love when he's about to first do the drift with the kaiju brain, and he's like doing the audio log for Bern Gorman's character, just like, so if I die, I win, and if I don't die, I still win. Just his last thing as he's about to potentially die is just to stick it to fucking Bern Gorman one last time.
Yeah, he's like, and then if I don't die, then I win, and if I die, well, you drove me to this, so this is all your fault. So I also win, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is like with the Transformers movies especially, they always would pick comedians and famous people just for the sake of having them be in the movie. They were always archetypes, and a lot of the archetypes are present in something like Pacific Rim, but the characters are more fleshed out, and they're actually specifically picked and casted for these actors that just make them work so perfectly together.
Well,
and then nothing happens by accident. It's always crafted.
Newt, Gottlieb, and Chuck are in-your-face archetypes, right? They're the ones that are just screaming archetype.
But because they actually have good, delivery.
They work.
And I know we're trying to get away from comparing it, but I always can't fucking stand. And the comedy in Godzilla vs. Kong made me think of the Transformers films to such a painful degree of how they try so hard to make these dumbass side characters funny and likable that it has the complete opposite effect on me and makes me hate all of them.
I have an entire rant planned for when we do that episode on that subject.
Like the fucking Australian kid who is there for literally no reason other than to say really terribly written dialogue that makes me want to kill him.
Or how about we had to have Kmart brand Anthony Anderson?
Fuck that movie.
Because Anthony Anderson is too big for us now. So we had to get someone that could play an Anthony Anderson fucking impression. Yeah.
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 So let's talk about,
a good movie.
I like parts of Godzilla vs. Kong, and I hate parts of Godzilla vs. Kong.
I like about 90% of all the monster stuff. I hate anything to do with the humans.
Every time they went to a human, I wanted to die.
There was one part with a human that involves a specific character that is not a human that I loved.
Although,
we're not talking about that movie, so I don't want to talk spoilers on it yet.
Although, thank Christ that Adam Wingard was directing that movie, because I don't know if you heard this or if I told you, but there was 4 hours of footage filmed for that movie.
Oh no! If it had been Zack Snyder,
he cut it all because he specifically said people are here for the monsters. Like, bless you, Adam Wingard. Because if Michael Bay had been directing that movie, then we would have been 3 hours long, and they would have included all of the dumbass fucking, like, he cut out so many subplots, half the human cast isn't even really in the movie.
Dude.
Like, there are main actors listed in the opening credits that are in the movie for all of 15 seconds because he and the editor axed their fucking plot lines entirely, and God bless them for it.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's a 2-hour movie, and according to the screen time breakdown, Godzilla has 13 minutes.
It could have been worse, dude. It could have been much worse. When you just hear about how much more human shit they had scripted, how many more characters they had that would have amounted to fucking nothing. The movie obviously should have been like a breezy fucking 90 minutes at the max, and just completely cut out 11, the black dude, and the fucking Australian kid, and the movie's immediately much better. But we're not here to talk about that movie. We're here to talk about Pacific Rim.
And specifically about Pacific Rim, I want to go into one of my favorite things about watching or playing or reading anything, Geoff, is the needless detail. The detail that is only there for you to notice it on like your third or fourth watch, right?
Yep.
Did you notice after we got to the Shatter Dome, which I believe is a
again, everything has a fucking amazing name.
Gypsy Danger, Striker Eureka.
Oh my god, Gypsy Danger is like the coolest fucking name of anything of all time. It's so fucking great.
I want those bomber jackets that say Gypsy Danger on the back, dude.
Even the fucking like the fucking B tier Crimson Typhoon, that's also a really badass name.
Yep.
It's in the movie for like 5 minutes. They still made it a badass
Leatherback
name.
and knife head, and yeah. So did you notice though, Crimson Typhoon is the one specifically that jumped out at me more than anything because there's 3 of them. It's piloted by triplets. Using the 3-arm technique, Geoff, very fast. Very effective. If you notice them in the background, in the cafeteria scene, everything they're doing is in perfect sync with each other. All 3 of them.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
I haven't noticed that, but I totally buy it that it's there, because that is such a Del Toro thing that he would have them do, you know?
Like the way that they walk through the cafeteria and then turn one at a time, and they all make the exact same turn in the exact same way. They all sit down at the table at the exact same time. They're all carrying their trays the exact same way, except for the one that always has the basketball under the other arm. And they do everything perfectly in sync like that. The Russian team did something very similar also at another part of the movie. And it's just like, that is a detail that, you know, doesn't have to be there. There's no reason for it to be there. You're never going to notice it if you only watch it once. But it's there. I also want to talk about the details that, like, Charlie Hunnam. One scene that he sells really well, dude, is being reunited with Gypsy Danger.
Yeah.
That was one thing that kind of stood out to me, because you got to remember, yeah, he was connecting to his brother. Yeah, later he's connecting to Mako, but they are connecting to the machine itself as well.
Mm-hmm.
Their brains are linked up with it. So it's really a 3-way drift. And he has to feel like Gypsy is as much a part of himself as he is a part of Gypsy. So he hasn't seen it. Last time he saw it, it was a fucking wreck heap on the coast of Alaska. And 5 years later, he's reunited with it, and he looks like he just found his long-lost love.
Yep.
I fucking love that scene when he sees her again.
He could have been a very boring character in this.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they give him just enough backstory, just enough, you know, legitimately good dialogue, especially when he's talking with Mako throughout the film. I think Charlie Hunnam has always been a very underrated actor, and gets a little bit of flack, you know, just because he's, you know, like the good-looking blonde dude who popped up in, you know, like Sons of Anarchy and got a few movie roles like this, and, you know, he's always kind of playing the same kind of hunky dude, you know, but I think he does have more acting range, if you'll give him credit for.
It's subtle. That's what this character needed for sure, so he was perfectly cast. This is literally the only thing I've seen him in, so I can't really attest, but, I mean, this character needed someone subtle. This character would not have worked with someone that was over the top or trying to play into it, right? Charlie Charlie Hunnam plays this character like, well, his past is his past, and that's where it needs to stay, and that's kind of perfect for what he's going for.
Ironically, I just remembered the guy who plays his stepdad in Sons of Anarchy is Ron Perlman.
I knew Ron Perlman was in that show. Yeah. They probably never even saw each other on set because they have no scenes together, so they probably were filmed at different times. But one scene I wanted to back up to that you brought up half of it. I wanted to talk about the other half. So you mentioned when Mako tells him to his face he's not the right man for the job and his reaction. I love that Mako has been basically in the Kaiju War her entire life. She was raised by Stacker Pentecost, more or less. So she didn't even realize what she was saying was harsh until his reaction, and then they show you her reaction, and she's just like, oh, shit. Like, she didn't even realize that she was kind of stepping a line until his reaction, which, by the way, he ends up being right? She's going about everything textbook, and he was going on about how when you get out in the battlefield, you'll see what it's really like.
Yeah.
And they end up kind of both being right. But yeah, just the actress that plays Mako, her expression, the moment of realization that she has in that scene of she kind of overstepped, because if you're going to say that, there's probably a better way to say it to someone's face. And she has been raised in such a condition that she didn't even realize that she was crossing that boundary until she already had. And I thought her reaction to that and her realization to that was really well played. Also, I really like the Mako actress, and we're going to have to talk about some stuff in Pacific Rim Uprising when it comes to Mako.
Yeah, for sure. What's also cool too is it's all perfectly in line with her character, because her only real emotional connection has been to Stacker Pentecost, who is a very reserved and military. He's a fucking military vet. He's very shut down emotionally, and even though he has a lot of love for Mako, and she's basically his his adopted daughter, he doesn't really express it because he needs to treat her professionally just because of their environment and because of the situation. And she conveys all that perfectly, and that she really only starts to open up as the movie progresses, kind of slowly, as her relationship with Raleigh grows throughout the film.
She basically only opens up to Raleigh, and she only does it after their minds have literally been connected and they just instantly know everything about each other. Basically, she is kind of shut down too until they plug into each other. And then if you notice, that's the moment that she opens up, because now what is there to not be open about? You know? I also like how I want to talk about Chuck and Herc for a second.
Okay.
Because I like Herc, is, by the way, is one of my favorite characters in the whole thing.
Yeah, he's a cool character. I like that actor a lot.
So all through the movie, there has been almost this joke of, well, there's no need to say this thing because you're about to be in my head, or you know what I'm thinking? I'm in your head. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. And then we get to near the end of the movie, and you see Herc and Chuck basically saying goodbye to each other, and just like, when you're drifting with someone, you just feel like there's nothing to talk about, and I regret all the things I didn't say. And you're just like, oh my God, this whole thing went from a joke to turning on its heels to making me cry.
Right? Yeah, because they know it's a suicide mission.
Yeah,
just based on the context of what they're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
it's by the way, the Herc actor, his name is in real life is Max Martini. Also, could be a Pacific Rim character name
or a James Bond villain.
That too. And Robert Kaczynski plays Chuck, just to call out the performances and the actors.
But since I've already gone down there, I was gonna end this part with this, but since I've already brought up the scene anyway, dude, the first Chuck with Stacker was awesome, because how the hell are you and I supposed to link up? And he's just like, I bring nothing to the drift. You, on the other hand,
are easy.
He's like, what was it? You're a
egotistical jackass with daddy issues.
An easy puzzle I solved on day one. Yeah. But you're your father's son, so
I fucking love Stacker Pentecost so goddamn much. Dude. What a great character.
And then Chuck's only reaction is, sounds good.
So yeah.
But
yeah,
dude, I almost cry every time. I've watched this movie, I don't know how many times since 2013, and I almost cry every time when Herc, for I believe the first time in the movie, calls him Stacker and not Marshall or the Marshal.
mm-hmm.
And
that's
says,
my son.
That's my son you have there. You hear me? That's my son. And like the look
So good
on Idris Elba's face when he hears Stacker too, when he looks up at Herc. Yeah, like that whole thing. I always want to cry to the "That's my son." But there is. Have you watched any of the deleted scenes?
No, I typically avoid deleted scenes on movies. Just never really seek them out.
There's a good one that I almost wish had stayed in. By the way,
yeah?
all the deleted scenes were the humans, and all of them needed to go. They were all literally nothing. They were just filler. They were nothing. They provided nothing to the movie. Except there was one with Herc and Chuck.
Okay.
When they're they're doing something around Striker Eureka, and they get into a big argument. I believe this is taking place after they eat with Raleigh, and Chuck says he'll drop him like a sack of kaiju shit, and then before the attack in Hong Kong. I believe it falls somewhere in there just based on the context, because it seems like Herc is yelling at Chuck for being an asshole, basically to Raleigh and Mako, and Chuck gets in his face about basically like, if you don't like the way I am, then why did you raise me inside of a Jaeger? And they just basically, he just dresses down his dad for, if you don't like what I am, you made me this way, kind of thing. And I almost wish that part had kind of stayed in. It was a really big moment for Herc and Chuck, and I think that really would have added even more gravity to the "I regret all the things I never said" and all that stuff, because that's what he's referring to. They talk about like how they talk about in that scene about how you never told me that you love me or anything like that, because he doesn't need to. They drift with each other, but he's never said it. Mm-hmm. And then now you get near the end of the movie, and it still works. Don't get me wrong, but having just watched the movie and then going and watching the deleted scenes and having just heard the "I regret everything I've never said," or they just walk up without even saying anything, he just goes, "I know," and no one has even said anything yet. There's an entire scene devoted to all the things that they never said, as they're in their face screaming at each other, and I was just kind of like, I think instead of wanting to cry, would have actually cried had this scene stayed in the movie. Yeah.
I could see that. I'd be curious to see if they sometimes they have like commentary along with deleted scenes as they talk about what made them decided to remove it. I'd be curious to see like what the editor and Del Toro were thinking when they specifically wanted to axe that from it.
Yeah, it was literally all like, there's one with the dude standing next to Raleigh when they're building the wall and they're watching the kaiju bust through the wall in Australia. Like he literally.
Why are we building this shit?
Yeah, he literally has a food voucher conversation with him, and it's shit like that. Like that guy, we didn't need more of that guy. We needed more of the monsters. So all of them needed to go. That one, I can see cutting it, but I kind of wish it had stayed in. I highly recommend checking that one out.
Okay, yeah, I'm curious to check it out now.
But since we're almost out of time, can we fast forward to shooting a monster in the face with a flare gun?
That's pretty great.
We're the only thing standing between this thing and a city of, what was it, 6 million, 10 million?
10 million, I think.
10 million? And so we can either sit here and wait for evacuation, or we can take these flare guns and do something really stupid.
yeah. His delivery of that line's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, he totally sells that shit. I like the line too when they're like, "I think this guy's dead, but let's go check for a pulse."
And then they just blow his chest completely open.
They just
so you can
fucking
see through
annihilate it. And there's just like smithereens left. Oh, by the way, the sound design
in this movie
for the monsters and the fucking the mechs, dude. There's so much weight and like oomph behind every movement they make where you just buy it. Because like a lot of movies that have kaiju or mechs in them to some extent, it comes across as like hollow and there's no real like weight behind it. But man, the sound design is so good, especially on the Jaegers, man. When they move, I love it.
Not only that, I'm sure there's a lot that we're not even catching in the background. There's a lot happening, especially with sound design. But we were talking just a moment ago, about an hour ago now, about the music. That heavy industrial sound to the music really is carrying a lot of weight also, because you always hear, is it a fucking tuba that blah every time a Jaeger shows up?
Yeah. They have very specific cues for
like that is timed with the Jaeger showing up every time, and it's amazing.
And arguably my favorite shot of the movie is where they're fucking dragging the goddamn freighter baseball bat, dude, and they frame it while you're looking at it from like ground level, and all you see is the freighter being dragged through the city street. I was like, oh, and then they time the fucking main theme thrust of the song as they're hitting it with the fucking freighter, dude. I'm just like, I love you, Pacific Rim, you get me.
Yeah, it's literally a Walking Tall moment. I think that same shot might even be in Walking Tall as he's dragging the 2x4.
Fuck yes, dude.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
God damn, that fucking Hong Kong fight is so fucking good. Okay, we have to talk about too. I love how creative the Jaeger pilots are. One that's super cool is when the Crimson Typhoon guys get caught as they're about to be like thrown, and then they rotate the lower half of the mech to land on their feet, and then use that propulsion against the kaiju to flip it. You know, super fucking badass. When Raleigh and Mako fucking eject the coolant to freeze the arm of the kaiju to get rid of its arm and like slice it off, like shit like that.
See, and shit like that is what I was mentioning earlier, where she's more textbook approach and his is experienced in war approach
and improvising.
This is why he deviates from the plan so much. That, and he was a hot shot, right? He was the stereotypical hot shot. Not anymore, but yeah.
When he when they're riding the kaiju in at the end towards the rift, and he like uses the part of the reactor as like a blast to like torch the Category 5. Man. What'd you say?
The unibeam.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Isn't that what Iron Man's weapon is called in the chest?
I think so. Yeah. It's so good. Also, just like, how fucking great is the fucking Bloodborne trick weapon sword they have on each arm of Gypsy Danger and the way they use it? That fucking anime as fuck shot in orbit when they slice it at an angle. The one that flies. Which, by the way, when the fucking kaiju grabs Gypsy Danger and just fucking sprouts wings out of nowhere, you're just like, oh fuck, dude.
Dude, when we were sitting in theaters for the first time, I was like, what?
Yeah, because that shit comes out, and in the way it's as it's flying, and it has this like kind of like pterodactyl feet, clutching Gypsy Danger, and it's smacking it into the tops of skyscrapers as it's flying across the town. Fuck, dude, it's so cool. There's so much like that's part of the thing that like I like so much about Kong Skull Island does a little bit too, and especially Pacific Rim, when they actually do interesting shit with the concepts at play. Because like most of the time it's just very dull. Like Godzilla, like they have like the cool shit, like where he laser rets down the throat of the thing, like we talked about earlier. But most of the time it's just kind of dull, and they don't really have a lot of like ingenuity with their actions.
He's got claws, he's got teeth, he's got a tail.
The Crimson Typhoon, the way that they spin their hands to create like the fucking like buzzsaws, that's cool.
I like Striker Eureka's pose when he opens up his chest and fires all the rockets. Mm-hmm. What caliber fucking artillery is that, by the way? Dude. Because each one of those barrels looks like it could be a handgun designed for the Jaeger.
Yeah.
It's
fucking crazy.
Also, you mentioned the chainsword that comes out on Gypsy Danger, which I imagine has to be rolled up somewhere, or rolled up in the arm, and allows it to be flexible when it's, not taut. But the ones that unfold on Striker Eureka to be like a twin-bladed like claw on each hand,
love it,
is fucking amazing. The way they opened up was great.
You know how much fucking time and effort they probably spent just designing the fucking Jaegers? Because they all have such a specific, like they're literally fucking characters themselves. There's so much attention to detail.
They have a lot of personality to them, right?
Yeah.
That's the only word I can come up with is personality.
It's really cool too, and you just like, I like that they spend so much time talking up the other mechs. The Russians. It's like Alpha Cherno or something like that, and then Crimson Typhoon. They talk them up a lot, and they make them out like they're going to be really important to the film, and for them to both get destroyed within the first 5 minutes of action is pretty fucking crazy.
Well, that lends gravity to that, right? It's like, did they suck? No. The Russian one was a Mark I, the oldest, heaviest one in the service, and in 6 years, the coast of Russia has never been breached. Like, they're badasses. Mm-hmm. That serves to show you that these kaiju are not fucking around, these two that came through this time.
Yeah. And just the fact that, like, one of them they're so smart, they've realized, that they need to bring a kaiju with an EMP to take them out. Like, and that's cool, too. Just the amount of foreshadowing tied to Gypsy being analog and having the nuclear reactor is really cool, because it's actually... foreshadowing is not something seen in the Transformers films, There's actually a lot of thought behind the mechs, and, they're not just there, just to have fucking robots fighting monsters, there's actual thought behind the way that they play into the film.
To make that same comparison, by the way, since this is comparison the podcast anyway, I remember watching a featurette a long time ago about Transformers, how they wanted them to be like dynamic and have a lot of motion to them. And what that translated into is, as Optimus Prime stands there, a wheel on his arm randomly spins for no reason, right? Shit like that. Or like someone has a flap on their back that just kind of opens and closes, and it literally is for no reason. It's just for the movement for the sake of having movement. Mm-hmm. The mechs, the Jaegers in Pacific Rim, they're very dynamic. They have a lot of moving parts to them, but like on Gypsy, the things under the ribs open up and you see like steam vent and then it closes again, and like everything feels like it has a purpose when it moves or does something. The fucking shoulders prop up and then lights turn on. The movements they have are not wasted movements. They're not wasted animations.
I really like the way that they design the sets of the interiors, like the cockpit areas. They're really cool too. They have this very kind of sleek, because when you think about it, they should look ridiculous and goofy, but I never get that impression. I just think they look kind of cool the way they have it all constructed inside. And like, I love the way that they kind of walk into the cockpit, which is like the helmet.
Yeah.
And then they have it go down like the elevator chute almost to like attach to the rest of the,
and then it
mech,
screws in.
So cool. Shit like that. So fucking cool.
It's really great.
I also just wanted to point out how much of a fucking Del Toro joke is the Newton's cradle, when you have the fucking mech hand go all the way in the punch and just barely tap the Newton's cradle, dude.
Or the seagull.
Yeah.
But like, my exact note is not how a Newton's cradle works. Don't even care.
Don't even care. Oh, dude, the fucking the rocket punch where they activate like the elbow thruster just to make the punch.
Elbow rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit should not work, but it all works, and I love it.
The Russian one where they punch it, its head moves back, and then the arm extends and punches it again.
Yeah.
That is the signature move for the Big O in Big O.
Oh, I still need to watch that. You've been trying to get me to watch that for years. I just always forget about it.
Yeah, his arms kind of retract like that and then spring forward like that. That's the signature move. I think of Big O every time I see that Russian, the Russian one punch it, and as its head is whipping back, the arm extends and punches it again.
Yeah.
It's like, damn.
Watching this has got me in a fucking mecha anime mood, so I'm gonna start browsing the Funimation page to see if I can find some shit.
We got a live action Gundam movie coming.
Oh, I was not aware of that. Is it actually
Netflix,
going to happen, or is it just being rumored?
No, it's Netflix, I believe. I forget who is behind it. I probably shouldn't have mentioned it unless I had it on top of my head, but yeah, Japan is not happy about it. America can't fucking wait. This is basically what I'm getting.
I've never watched much of Gundam, but I did play a lot of one of the PS2 games, and if it's a fucking mecha thing, I'll fucking watch it. I don't care. I just love mecha stuff.
Anyone who listens to this podcast is gonna be pissed when I say this. I never watched Gundam because there's no jumping on point, but I watched the fuck out of G Gundam because it was its own thing. Because it was its own thing, it was a jumping on point for me. And people that are fans of Gundam fucking hate G Gundam.
Yeah, I can see that. I've heard that same type of thing where it's just very impenetrable for new people because of how convoluted their fucking parallel storylines and the way they...
Well, it's been going on for 30 years, and each new iteration is adding on to what's already established.
Basically like how inscrutable Metal Gear is at this point.
Basically. Yeah, but no, it's... So, I don't want to wrap up this episode, Geoff, without talking about the final mission in the movie. I want to devote a few minutes to the final mission because it's 2 Category 4s and 1 Category 5 Kaiju, the first of its kind, and also a triple event at the bottom of the ocean. And, well, first off, did you have any idea which robot was going to make it to the end of this mission? Because they fuck both of them up, Stryker and Gypsy.
Yeah, Gypsy loses an arm and has just a barely functioning right leg. It's like limping.
It functions like a peg leg by the time the Kaiju's done with it. And they're just like, hold on, Stryker, we're coming. And they're using their sword as a cane. And it's just like, oh my God, what are you going to do when you get there?
Dude, when the fucking explosion happens and the water dissipates temporarily...
And it's just raining fish.
Oh my God, it's so good.
And then I look behind him as this wall of water is coming back.
Fuck, dude.
Oh,
just the fucking impact that explosion would have to get rid of the water for what, like 10 whole seconds of the ocean
no
floor.
Water in the ocean.
Of no water in the floor of the ocean. Fucking bonkers, dude.
I remember seeing that in theaters and my head exploding, and they do it in a close-up shot, Geoff. They don't go to a wide shot and show you this fucking mushroom cloud or this giant hole. They do it in a close-up shot of Gypsy just in the open air looking around.
Yeah.
It's literally raining fish. And then Gypsy turns around right as the wall of water is coming back in. Yeah, terrifying. Fucking terrifying. And watching Herc, when they cut to Herc as Chuck is saying, well, you know, my father always says, if you have a shot, you take it. And he just closes his eyes because you know he's thinking it was supposed to be me in there with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like... if he was going to die, I should have been with him. You know that's what's going through his head. And, first off, when the mission is done, the solemn way he says that this is Marshall Hansen, because he's Marshall now. Marshall didn't make it. So he's Marshall now. But, yeah, dude, that fight that Stryker has, it looks like it's going to be Stryker versus the Category 5. And then Stryker Eureka decides, no, we need to pave the way because Gypsy is a walking bomb.
Yeah, they make it abundantly clear with foreshadowing too that, you know, they say several times, you know, that Gypsy is a walking reactor. I should have picked up on that and guessed that it was gonna, you know, be used that way. But it's always used, they talk about it a lot, but it's used pretty, subtly, and I actually didn't expect it to happen, which is nice, because usually I figure shit out that I shouldn't, just because I've been, you know, like, spending too much time watching fucking movies where I just pick up on shit that I, you know, don't want to, even though it ruins the movie, you know? And I'm trying to, like, you know, just enjoy the movie and be surprised, but my brain just kicks into fucking overdrive sometimes, and... for me to not be thinking originally when I first saw the movie, like, oh, of course, it's going to be the fucking Gypsy, you know, that's the bomb, but it's really well done. It's a cool little, like, fake out.
It's really, really well done. Well, the entire movie, they talk about Stryker Eureka running point because it's the fastest one.
and that Gypsy is there for purely protection.
Right.
They point out.
But then, how goopy is the metaverse, Geoff? Like, fucking Gypsy Danger is just floating down slowly and just floats in front of the precursors. It can't fly. It's literally floating in like a fluid. Like, what the fuck is the metaverse made out of?
I guess it just has like a really fucked up gravity as well to make it float, because it almost appears, like, to your point, like it's underwater even though it's not.
Like the lighting is almost like, like there's something there.
Yeah.
Like there's something it's passing through, like not necessarily water, but like it's just fucking lube. It's just lubricant everywhere.
Yeah, just everywhere. Yeah.
But yeah, I love the Independence Day reference of cutting back to the precursor right as the explosion happens. It's almost shot for shot, but mirrored, because the alien is on the right side and low instead of the left side and high. But I fucking love that. And the genius thing about this ending, we have closed the breach. There's no more Jaegers. So now there's no more kaiju. There's no more Jaegers. If you make a sequel, makes total sense we built more Jaegers. If you never make a sequel, it's wrapped up with a bow.
Yep.
It could literally go either way. And it still works no matter how you look at it. Because it's a fitting end if we never make a sequel, right? The monsters weren't coming through, so we no longer have any monsters of our own. That was the quote from the beginning of the movie. And if they were built specifically for that purpose, and I guess Gypsy Danger died doing what she loved, and she was the last, and then now, when we get a sequel, it's like, well, okay, of course we would have kept building them, because who knows if they're going to come back or someone else is going to come in. But at the same time, the ending is genius just because of how flexible it is. It can work either way.
Yeah. I always wish it probably won't happen, but I also never really thought the second one would happen. So you never know, because it took them 5 years to greenlight the second one, and eventually Hollywood's going to run out of comic book IPs to burn into the ground. So you're like, why not bring back more Pacific Rim? It made a decent amount of money, especially overseas. It's always been a big hit in Asia.
Now,
so I'd be all about it.
Wasn't this one of the first movies that came in a wave that were made in conjunction with China? Like China had active hand in helping develop the movie?
I think so, because I remember them specifically having a big marketing push in Asia, a lot more than they typically do.
Like this is why we're set in Hong Kong for a lot of it. This is why we have a lot of Asian actors and actresses. That there's a lot going on because it was set up in there. It's like the deal, for those that aren't familiar, I think we still have it for some movies, but there was a period of time where, like, China has been doing a lot of things to restructure themselves, and China traditionally keeps pretty much all of the box office of a movie, and that sucks for the people making a movie putting it out, because that's where they get their money, and China has such a huge population, and everything is so popular over there all the time. And one of the deals is we want more stuff over here, so we will help you make it and give you a much larger cut of the profits than we traditionally do. But like, we have conditions, like, so that fight is in Hong Kong. One of the main stars, is Asian. There's a lot of Asian actors and actresses in it. But the way it's done, it's not in your face. It's organic to the movie. I had an example, and I should have written it down, but there was one movie that it was blatantly in your face of, are you happy, China? I don't remember what it was now, but a lot of them handled it like Pacific Rim did, where everything was just folded in so nice and neat that if you never knew that, it never seemed odd to you or jumped out to you.
Yep.
But I believe this is one of the, probably not the first, but one of the first in that wave of movies that came in, and they still do that. That's why we still get a lot going on. I believe even Godzilla versus Kong was one of those. They have a big fight in China as well. But yeah, it's It's still a thing that we're doing, and it's a good thing because it makes it easier, and it means that the China box office means more to the numbers.
Also, Hong Kong is just always an awesome city to have in a movie because of how vibrant it is with the coloring. Like, man, it works so perfectly in conjunction with the way that the...
Although, in Godzilla vs. Kong, it looks like Tron. It looks like a city out of Tron.
Yeah, and that's what I was alluding earlier too. Like when I was talking about how I was more impressed with the CGI. It feels like I'm actually watching giant things walking through a city when I watch Pacific Rim.
Yes.
When I was watching Godzilla vs. Kong, mentally I was just, and I think it ties in with what you're talking about the animation and how they had to do it frame by frame, because I always just thought I was looking at CG and looking at a green screen the entirety of Godzilla vs. Kong. And while they have some really cool shots they use, and while they have some pretty cool fights between the two, leads, but it's not the same. Pacific Rim is just,
there's a lot that they do with scale, right, in Pacific Rim that they do not do in the Monsterverse. Again, Kong Skull Island is an outlier in the Monsterverse. Basically anything that I refer to in the Monsterverse does not apply to Kong Skull Island. It's basically the three Godzilla movies.
Which is a bummer that all the Godzilla stuff is the worst.
I know.
It's a real bummer.
But
I'm not a big Godzilla guy at all. I've never been. Probably never will be. But I want to see, good movies, and I want to see good kaiju movies.
There's some of the 90s stuff that I think you would really like that I have in that Toho collection. But so in the Godzilla movies, and even in some of the classic Godzilla stuff, it's usually just kind of an aerial shot of what's happening. And there's not much of a sense of scale when you're zoomed out looking really far away. If you think about the way Pacific Rim is shot, you get a lot of those wide shots, a lot of those zoomed out shots, but you also get a lot of up close stuff. There's a moment where you're standing inside an office building as Gypsy Danger runs by. The stuff with the seagull and the Newton's cradle and stuff like that, the boat at the beginning of the movie, a lot of that stuff is fun, or meant to be funny. But at the same time, that is showing you a sense of scale. They are reminding you just how large these fucking things are. That seagull is sitting on a mooring for a fucking freighter. It's so tiny. The Gypsy Danger barely hits it, and it nearly knocks off into the ocean, and it is so tiny in comparison. And it's designed to keep a fucking freighter from floating away. Just about them using the freighter in a Walking Tall moment. I mean, relatively, you don't know exactly, but relatively how big a fucking freighter is, Geoff. And to see them manhandling it like a baseball bat.
God damn it. Just thinking about it makes me want to go watch the movie again right now. So good.
It's moments like that give you your sense of scale. And that is one thing that was missing from the Monsterverse. Again, aside from Kong Skull Island, they do things in Kong Skull Island to give you those moments of scale.
Kong Skull Island just seems to be the diamond in the rough of that.
It really is.
I don't know if it's because of Jordan Vogt Roberts just being like, he was the director of that movie. I don't know if it was just him in like the right place at the right time. What's weird too is like, I went back and looked it up and I was like, well, what is the difference? Did it have different writers? No, it actually has, like, it's really weird. Kong Skull Island has like a lot of the same writers too of all of the Godzilla movies. And it's just so dramatically better that it makes me scratch my head. And I don't understand how Skull Island works so well and understands what it is so well, and everything just works. And all the Godzilla stuff is just kind of a shit show. And
I wonder if they had more free reign.
Maybe.
I wonder if Godzilla being the bigger property, Warner Brothers or Lionsgate or someone, Lionsgate probably just distributed, right? But Warner Brothers, I wonder if they were more heavy-handed in mandating things for the Godzilla movies. And
also, the 2014 Godzilla movie just set a very ill-advised tone and manner of making those films that it's a level of self-importance that is the exact opposite of Pacific Rim, which has gravity to it, but also isn't afraid to have fun. The Godzilla stuff is afraid to have fun, and it shows. And then when they try to have fun, they have these fucking unbearable supporting characters that I just want to fucking strangle every time they open their goddamn mouth.
I want to take a moment to remind everyone about how up its own ass these Godzilla movies have been, and storylines like we are the disease and they are the fever, so let's kill everyone on the planet by unleashing Monster Zero. And these are based off of Japanese properties meant for children. Those movies aren't meant for adults, Geoff, in Japan.
They originally were based off of fucking puppeteers in like essentially like a Power Rangers villain costume.
Basically, yes. That's what I was about to say. The way we think of Power Rangers is the way classic Godzilla stuff was basically meant to be looked at in Japan at the time. It's for kids. It's dudes in rubber suits in cardboard cities. And very intricately designed, if you've ever seen them, even for the era. But they blow up real nice, and they are cardboard, and that is what it's meant to be. And then you fast forward to King of the Monsters, where this woman unleashes Monster Zero to trigger the apocalypse because humans fucked up the planet, so give it back to the monsters. And then, now you should feel bad because she's dying because she's also a mother. What?
It's just all over the place.
Yeah,
but
I don't. Yeah, so Pacific Rim. Crimson Typhoon, 3 thumbs up.
Three thumbs up. Yeah, absolutely. This is probably one of my favorite movies of the past 10 years. This is one of those movies where it's like
this is your comfort food cinema right here.
When a new generation of movie consumption, as far as like the jump from like VHS to DVD and then to Blu-ray, and and then to 4K. Like, there are 2 movies I always go back to that I upgrade to first, and they are the first Matrix movie and Pacific Rim. Those are the ones that I want to get updated and just enjoy being updated into the new format, and then just, like, behold the spectacle of it and just get sucked in. And I have a fucking dumbass smile on my face for the entirety of Pacific Rim, no matter how many times I watch it. It's just so much fun. It knows exactly what it is.
Just a beer and a smile watching Pacific Rim.
Del Toro is such a perfect match for what I want to be the tone of a kaiju movie.
Yes.
And I fucking love it. Do you have any other tidbits before we sign off?
I don't believe so. My phone went to sleep. Let me just peruse I don't have a whole lot of notes. But
I did have one other thing. Just as a final little side note, I liked the improvisation of Riley's idea to fucking send the fucking Kaiju's face near like the magma exhaust to like torch its face in the vent. Yeah, it's fucking badass. They like melt half its face off, just like fuck yeah.
What about the crocodile Kaiju coming at him? They just hold the sword up and its own momentum saws it in half.
Oh, we almost forgot to talk about that. That's so fucking. And so they twist.
That's so anime. That's one of the most anime things that happens in the movie.
It's so good because they fucking halfway through the slice, they like rotate their hand around, to make it vertical to get like all the way through the meaty part of the kaiju.
See, is it that, or were they giving out? Like there was so much resistance they're giving out, then you see them kind of like shift to turn their shoulder into it as well. Because it's like the hand starts to come back and then they shift and the hand stops.
God damn it, I love it.
Yeah, either way it works. Either way.
It's fucking badass.
Yeah, it's great. Oh, God, this fucking movie is so good, Geoff.
It's the best. Yes, we will be talking about the sequel in 2 weeks' time. We are now officially, as long as we get this episode up by this Saturday, we are officially back on our schedule, so thank Christ. Yeah, if you would like to check us out more, be sure to subscribe on whichever platform you are listening to us on so you can get the future episodes. If you can, follow us on Twitter, we're over at SPR Filmcast for show updates and, little tidbits here and there. Where can people find you on the interwebs, Ron?
They can find me every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday evening at 9:30 p.m. U.S. Central Time over on twitch.tv/RonSenseTV. And Twitter and YouTube, I am also RonSenseTV.
And you can always find me in the drift. Have a good night, everybody. Jesus.
Jizz in your pants and then die.
Yes.
What a way to
AC/DC
go.
plays in the background. That's the best way to go out, bro.
Because they have the ushers that come in and introduce the show like the way the Warren used to here.
There's no cleaning up after what happens to Geoff in that situation.
It's like
you just burn the seat and walk away.